procrastination, motivation, and discipline, willpower. So these are the things that we struggle in everyday life.
The so-called the instant gratification. I think that kind of basically drives a lot of our actions. We value what we are going to get immediately far more than what we are going to get later.
We are still stuck in how do I get up at 5 a.m.?
I don't think it has worked for anyone, including Elon Musk.
Be it in career, be it in life, or be it in health or whatsoever, that you have a goal and you know exactly what you need to do. The first and foremost thing that you need to work on is setting your mindset. And our brain either looks for that survival or comfort.
When you're not ready to give up something, it means you don't want it that much. If my past self sees what I'm doing now, I'll say, how the hell he has a magic can. There is no point in trying to do everything. You have to have a clear goal. What is it that you want? Dasavadani, like I can do 10 things. It will be good. But the thing is, most of us might not. So be practical.
This is the last piece of cake that is left.
Why is sugar so comfortable? Why is sleep so comfortable? Quit now. Never works. Why should I? And you don't have an answer for it. Unless you have an answer for the why should I, you're never actually going to quit. It's all only wishful thinking. Follow your passion, follow your heart. No, it's not actually practical. You also need to know what you're good at.
This has changed a lot of my thought process. Thank you so much, Dr. Arvind, for coming here to share your expertise. And I have lots of questions to clear the information that we all lack, and we are not studying these things in a day-to-day life, or neither we've studied anything about it in detail while growing up. So, and your expertise required you to get in deep about this particular topic that we're going to talk. So I want to start off with one primary thing that we all deal with. I always say that knowledge is all out there. In this era, if you want to build a rocket, the blueprint is out there. And if you want to start a business, too many blueprints are out there. But when we have the knowledge ready, the moment we think that we have to start acting upon it to reach our goals, dreams, or everything, that's when we start to deal with the side effects. Procrastination, motivation, and discipline, willpower. So these are the things that we struggle in everyday life. So can you give me insights into what's really happening behind the scenes in our brain?
Right. So before I just start off my rambles, I would like to thank you, Padmaja, as well as the audience for even watching this. And a small disclaimer, I'm more of a hardware guy. Like I deal with the brain, I cut open, deal with it and all that stuff. I'm not really into the software kind of, there is a mind aspect of it, which is the realm of the psychiatrist and the psychologist. But I'm also a functional neurosurgeon. Like I do surgeries for functional aspect like OCDs and Parkinson's disease, wherein I deal with this dopamine hit. So I do deal with this dopamine, all these circuitries. And so in that aspect, maybe I can talk something about it. Yeah. So just before we go into all this thing, I just want to give a very, very brief and pithy way of how we look at the brain.
Okay.
So I would divide the brain into three kind of things, right? One is the animal brain that drives the emotions. So that's what we call as the limbic circuit. So that contains, and this was the earliest form. This is there in almost all the animals. So even on the lower animals. And then comes the larger brain, or the neocortex. And that is the one that makes all the decision. And even in that, there is an area called the prefrontal cortex. That is the one thing that makes the Homo sapiens sapiens. That is, it makes the humans as they are. The apes don't have it. Okay. Most of the animals don't have it. So this is the prefrontal cortex. That's the latest addition in the evolution. So that makes our choices, our rationalization, so on and so forth. So in between these two, right? So that's like the emotion is the generator. If you want to do something, you should have a need to do something, right? So that kind of a generator, the power generator is the limbic system. And this is the end user. See, once your the cortex is involved, it just asks you to just get things done. But in between, you need something called the transformers to modify the signals from the limbic circuit and then pass it on to this to the larger area. Okay. So this is like the power transformers that we have. So these are all this is the basic thing. And most of what we're going to discuss is about the conflict between the limbic circuit or the emotional brain and the prefrontal cortex or the logical brain. So this is what we are going to define. So when I say this logical and this thing, I'm not talking about the left and right brain things that we have. I think most of us know who's the right brain guy and who's the left brain guy. So that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the driving forces vis-a-vis the limiting forces, the inhibiting forces. So that's what is the other thing. So there is always a conflict between these things. So this is exactly what we are going to navigate. And when you are talking about the translation as such, it's as I said, this conflict is what has been driving the evolution from the beginning till now. There was even a theory that only about 5,000 years back we started developing the prefrontal cortex properly, and which is why the civilization as we know it kind of exploded, and it's been accelerating from so on. So this is the basic gist, and I think you can lead me by questions from now on.
So you've explained about the technical aspects of what starts with this, and there's one particular thing that you've mentioned, that we need to have that need, even to do something, right? We need to develop that need. Once we develop the need, so it's Simon Sinek. So I almost seems to be mentioning him in some of the episodes, because do you know Simon Sinek?
No.
Okay, so he is this person who says, know your whys. If you want to do something, know your whys. So, and a lot of times when we want to build a habit, let's talk about habit as one of the driving force that we would want to develop, because we've evolved, but the thing is we are still stuck in, how do I get up at 5 a.m.?
Okay. So in this there is we have to make a distinction between the habit and an addiction, and we should also understand why a habit is actually formed. So for example, when you start driving, initially when I started driving, I was scared. So even when I started driving on the right side, when I was in Canada, I had to drive on the right side. So I had to buy a car because of the cold there. So I was always used to driving on the left hand. Now it's on the right hand. So when I drove initially, every single moment was a conscious action.
Yeah.
Right. So everything was conscious, which means at that point, it's the cortex, the neocortex was activated at every point of time. I was mindful of driving. But over a period of time, what happens is upon repetition, this kind of goes into a limbic circuit or that intermediate thing that I call the transformer or the basal ganglionic circuit. It kind of imprints, and that's where your muscle memory lies. So once it goes into the muscle memory, it refines the circuits again and again. And finally, one clear plan is there, and then it puts it back to this prefrontal cortex or any other cortex, not just the prefrontal cortex, most of the other areas in the brain, and then kind of crystallizes it. So from that point in time, when you drive, it's reflexive. You can think about movies, you can think about your friends, you can think about your work. You're still driving. All your the complex actions of driving, everything it's on automatic mode, and you are able to utilize that time to think something. You can enjoy the music, so on and so forth. So the idea of forming a habit is to relieve the brain of its strenuous function of conscious decisions. A string of conscious decisions is what I call as mindfulness, right? So that you want to avoid that, because that's a lot of resource strain on the brain.
Okay.
So that's why a habit is formed.
Okay.
So that is actually very useful. So on the extreme end of it, so there's something called an addiction. We always say cigarette is a bad habit, or is it an addiction? So what is the difference between a habit and an addiction? In my opinion, it would be like when, habit is for our convenience, but when it starts involving your emotions, when your limbic brain is also involved in the decision making as a part of the habit, that's when it becomes an addiction. For example, like it's an alcohol or a mainlining Coke or some snorting Coke or whatever. Once it starts, you have a compulsion to do it at that point. So addiction is in the psychiatric balance, there is 3 components of addiction. There has to be a compulsion to do certain things. And then there should be when there is a withdrawal, there has to be a negative connotation to it. Like if it's not there, then something bad, it's going to happen. So that is going to be there. and this compulsion is driven by the emotion. And even this negative is also driven by the emotions, in that the fear factor steps in. So these are all the two important things. And then there is the other thing is, the final stage in addiction would be something when the prefrontal cortex is now involved. So initially when someone's drinking or taking a drug, it's all the emotions, the pleasure, the joy out of taking the drug, and then the negative aspects of taking it. But on some point in time, this habit is so driven, it goes to the prefrontal cortex, and now you start preoccupying about it. You start thinking, how am I going to get my next fix?
Yeah.
So at that time you start actively thinking, right? So at this point, this is not just pure emotion, but now this becomes an actively you want to seek the drug. So all these components make the habit. The addiction. So there is a huge difference between the habit and the addiction. It's just that it's also a habit, but with a strong emotional component to it. Now the emotional brain is driving all our actions. So that's how I would see addiction as. So when we talk about habit, the key thing that most of us would want to avoid, something called procrastination.
Yeah.
Like you just don't want to, you don't want to just get up in the morning, right?
Yeah.
So it is always between, the brain evaluates, right? Do I want this? And I'm sorry to digress, there is something called the power of now, the so-called the instant gratification. I think that kind of basically drives a lot of our actions.
Yeah.
We value what we are going to get immediately far more than what we are going to get later.
And
right?
did we get addicted to this?
It is evolutionary. It's not addiction. It's evolutionary. You had see, if there is a food now, if someone sees a fruit in the Neolithic ages, if he doesn't take that fruit and eat now, you don't know whether he's going to starve that evening or not.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he had to take that. The moment you say, just take, that's the chance play dance kind of, just take it and eat it. So that kind of an attitude is kind of inbuilt, and it's evolutionary. It's driven by the emotions. So that you can't help it. It's been millions of years of evolution. We are just trying to control those impulses by the prefrontal cortex, which is quite really new to us. We don't even know how to utilize it completely. So this power of now is what drives us mostly. You want to if you're going to have something pleasurable right now, you'd rather take it. We will see that later. Yeah. So that's exactly your attitude. That drives a lot of wrong decisions, starting from even infidelity, everything. It's just you're not thinking about the consequences. The long term is so vague and fuzzy or fugazi, as in a famous movie they say. So it's more like the short term has such power over us. But at the same time, prefrontal cortex helps you evaluate the choices. Right? So how are we going to create a habit? Okay. It is basically by making incremental dopamine doses plus fake till you make it. There is even a study that says that if you're reading something and you just keep a pencil in your teeth and do this like a kind of a grimace and read it, it feels more funny because the brain thinks that you're actually smiling even though you're not.
Okay.
So it feels that as if whatever you're reading is at that much bit more funny. And similarly, sitting erect, that kind of it's everyone knows that when you're sad and disappointed, you slouch.
Yeah. Yeah.
So au contraire, you got to be, when you're happy and all full of josh and confidence, you're sitting erect, like you're throwing yourself out to the world. So these are all effects of your emotion, but at the same time, you can trick your brain into the reverse psychology. These are some of the things called the neuro-linguistic programming. So wherein you trick your body by your body posture into thinking what you want it to think. Like you're kind of aligning your emotional brain to your prefrontal cortex, to the logical brain. Okay. So that is exactly what a conscious decision that I'm talking about. So the fake till you make it is one thing. And then you need to have the dopamine hit. There's nothing more powerful than a dopamine hit. So one of my friends used to say that in his 5th standard in his school, that's the only time he ever got some first rank in his school. He was always, and the teacher said, "You're such a great student." So he says that one thing kind of made me a good studying guy because I had to maintain it.
Yeah.
So this is what I'm calling. So that one single dopamine hit, you're addicted to the adulation. You're addicted to the appreciation. And so you're ready to work towards it.
Okay. So one simple question when you're just saying about this. So now let's say that a person is going to gym for the first time, whatsoever, or for the 10th time. So the day that he or she felt good about going to the gym, sticking to the plan, doing that workouts, feeling better, that day, if he or she heightens their sense of self-validation or self-appreciation, will that help them to come for the next day?
Yes, but at the same time, you know what? I'm sure you've heard of the term runner's high, right? Runner's high is something that beyond a point when you start running or this thing, they get a high and it's kind of addictive. The similar thing happens for gym rats. When we go for the gym, when you run, when you do certain stuff, that gives you a high. You don't need to do anything about it. That physical action in itself gives you that high. So that's why if you make it a habit, you go for some days, it becomes a habit. So this high is actually, this is also, it's a very similar high to addiction, but there is a significant difference between these two. The first one, the good variety one, is more because there is an action to back it up. There is a multimodal sensory input like the pain from the limbs, the stress, everything adds on to the experience of the dopamine hit. So there is a substance to this high. But in an addiction, it's just some chemical receptor directly going and hitting that dopamine thing.
Okay, yeah, you don't have to work hard for it.
You don't need to work hard for it. It just directly goes to the stimulator. Yeah. This multimodal sensory input stimulates the dopamine center. Here, just some chemicals just sneak in there and activate the same centers, right? So there is a difference between these two. So there is also a difference in the way the body kind of accommodates this. In that, every time you run, you're going to have a similar high. You're going to be happy. You're going to be this thing. And I would call that incremental. So every time you extra run, you're more happy. But when it comes to substance abuse, what happens is, for you, initially, a small dose might give you a great happiness, great joy, a great dopamine hit. But over time, it's now decremental. You need more and more of the same to even maintain, leave alone going to the joy aspect. You're going to be depressed. Even for you to be normal, you will need that hit. Right? So this is decremental and that's incremental. So this is a difference between a dopamine hit that's backed up by true actions and an empty one.
Yeah.
So there lies a small distinction. So yes, so as you rightly asked, self-validation happens on its own. You feel so good about yourself. That is self-validation.
I do see with my clients, this is the thing. Whenever they screw things up, they are so harsh on themselves that it's not just one time I effed it up. It kind of goes like every single time. So they keep building up saying that I'm bad at this, I'm bad at this, I'm bad at that, I cannot do anything. But the same people will not acknowledge the good things that they've done. Like, oh, I've done it.
Okay, so again, one more digression to the anatomy of the brain. So in the initial phase, like quite some long back, in the middle centuries, there was an so-called science, or rather a pseudoscience called phrenology. Therein, people claimed that they can feel the shape of the skull and they can identify which area of the brain is developed, and therefore I could predict the kind of personality that he is going to exhibit. So it was a pseudoscience, pure. It's a complete snake oil on a hokum. No questions on that. But there was some kind of truth to it in that it identified that areas of brain have different functions. So the next stage was that there was something called a Brodmann's area, and a famous anatomist, he classified each area of the brain has specific functions. So for example, there's a area called the Broca's area. It's on the dominant lobe in the frontal lobe. So we call it as a Broca's area. Usually for almost 96 to 97% of the population, it's on the left frontal lobe. That talks about the speech, like the expressive component of the speech. And similarly, there are multiple areas, as the Wernicke's areas, primary sensory cortex, and so on and so forth. So this was the next stage of evolution. And the third stage of evolution now is like multiple modules. It's distributed memory. So like even all these drones and nanobots and all this AI, that's what they do now. There is not the previous AI concept and the current AI concept are entirely different. Now it's all distributed knowledge. Each module and agent will have a specific kind of knowledge, but they work together to form a whole, right? And they are not localized in one place. They're not like there's not a strict demarcation. This part is only here. It's not. It's kind of distributed, but there is a gradation in the distribution. So the current concept is like our brain has multiple areas with different functions and a phenomenal amount of redundancy is built in. Okay, I will ask you a question. So you're fit. If you're on a diet and you're on a strict diet, someone comes and gives you some kind of a cake. It looks damn yummy. You want to eat it. Would you take it or not? I'm asking you a question now.
If I am not strict about it.
Okay. If you're strict about, okay, you will take it, and then?
If I'm not strict about it, I would take it.
Okay.
If I am strict about it,
if you're strict about it?
No.
Okay, there comes in you're strict about it, and there is a circumstance where you're kind of compelled, or just it's too good to resist. What would you do?
So here's the thing: what I would do when I make up my mind about something, being strict. So I have to do this. I have to do this. Now, what I train myself is to analyze where do I generally go wrong and prepare myself. This is the situation that might happen. If this happens, I will do this. So when I give the prompts to myself, I see that happening. I feel
I'll
good.
catch exactly. So what is the promise that you make to yourself?
That I will stick to this.
Okay, so now there's a conflict between yourself, right? In the sense, there is certain, you made a promise to whom?
Myself.
To myself. It's also the same thing that's also being tempted by that. So which you? So there is a conflict of person.
Okay.
Right? So that's what we call it, something called an Ulysses contract.
Okay.
You make to your future self about something. Like, you know this, your one brain wants it, the other brain doesn't want it. So there is an argument between these two. You yourself, your one half of the brain, or rather, I would not even call it one half. One part of the brain is kind of making a deal with the other. I'm telling you, okay, fine.
Who's going to win?
Who's going to win? So I said, okay, fine, right. You don't take it, but if you so badly want to take it, are you willing to run an extra 10K? So this is the kind of argument and the deals that happen between the various parts of the brain. I'm not talking about one part. So there are multiple sub-agents, almost like a democracy. Like there are multiple agents and multiple modules of the brain that they vie for your attention. But ultimately, at the end of it, you can make only one action. Right? Yeah. It's like the first past the post democracy here. Like if you get 151 votes and 49 votes, you win. So similarly, there is always a thing with what is the course of action that our body, or as the you or whatever it is going to take. So for that, there is multiple parties or multiple concepts or ideas or modules in the brain or the agents. They will chip in. They will fight it out. And finally, one action will just float up, and that is the kind of action that you take. So what is basically happening is there's so much of dialogue going on between various yous, I would say. Right? So this is what is, so it's not as if I'm making my decision. No, it's not.
There's so many parts of you.
Exactly. They're vying for an attention.
Yeah.
And your brain, or your conscious, there was one famous book in which by Incognito, that's a book name. It's a good one. I think a lot of people can read it. So that says that our consciousness is just like a stowaway. Like, say, for example, when you're sitting, you're listening to me talking because you're conscious about it. You're mindful of what I'm talking. But at the same time, there are so many other sensations. Your breathing, your heart sounds are there, your movement is there, your body position is there, the chill of the air conditioner. You don't notice most of those things, but everything is still being perceived, right? Yeah. So probably we are perceiving about 1% of all the sensory inputs that are there at any time. So how do you decide what that is? That's where the consciousness comes in. It's basically like the whole room is there completely dark. You just take a torch and show it. Whatever
where do you want to focus
exactly,
it?
Where you want to see, that's exactly what you see.
Yeah. Okay.
So this is the whole thing about consciousness. And when you talk about the mindfulness, that's where it comes in. Mindfulness is basically being conscious of everything that you take.
Can that actually happen? Because I cannot be focusing on you and also being mindful about my...
Okay, so let's say we have something a chips packet, you're watching a movie, you just keep eating it. After some time, initially you go to the fridge, you take a packet of chips, keep it beside you, plonk it on the sofa, watch a movie, and start taking it. That's a conscious decision. In the 10th minute, it's an unconscious thing. You just watch the movie, take it, plonk it, take it, plonk it. At that point, it becomes unconscious because it's kind of burned down as an habit at that point in time. So what happens is, at this point, the prefrontal cortex has stopped functioning. Your cortex is not working. It's just your muscle memory and the emotional, the part of it that gives you pleasure. It just takes it, put it in the mouth, take it, put it. Yeah. That's all it is. Okay. You're cutting off your prefrontal cortex from the decision making in the action.
You're giving it a rest.
You don't even know whether whether satiety is achieved. You're just keeping it, and after some time, you said, "What's wrong with me?" Right? So this is where I'm talking about the mindfulness. If you do involve the prefrontal cortex into it, which is what is mindfulness, paying attention to the fact that you're eating, you wouldn't continue doing the same action. You would stop doing that at some point in time. So that's what I would call as mindfulness.
Okay.
So it is not about being aware. Yeah. See, maybe that's an advanced level of yoga practitioner. They say I'm mindful of everything, which is probably impossible for most of us mortal humans to attain. But that being a different thing altogether, I'm talking even for small things. Like you enjoy what you're doing. If you're eating something, enjoy what you're eating. Be mindful of its context structures. Basically, try to involve your prefrontal cortex into most of your action. And that is exactly mindfulness. Pay attention.
I'm going to just ask you a small point over here. This is what I generally see as well, not in myself, but most of the people around. So when I say to myself, or when I know or heighten my senses and know for sure that this is the last piece of cake that is left, or today is going to be the day that I am going to do just this, but I know it is going to be hard work, and I prepare myself to do the hard work, or prepare myself to feel full about that last piece that is left, I am more likely to feel okay to put in that work. Are you getting what I'm asking you? But
yeah, kind of. Okay.
If I am hungry, and I think there is lots more, and let's say that somebody gives me the cake in my family, and I eat, and I want to eat some more, and I ask, is there cake? And they say no, then I'm actually not able to, be okay with it.
Okay. So what happens at this point is when you're, basically that's coming from stress. Like when you have, there is always, as I say, the emotional brain and the logical brain, but then there are multiple other brains. But let's stick with this two-party system right now for now. There is an emotional brain, and there's a logical or the reasoning brain that evaluates the choices. So these are the two things. So whenever you're in hunger or the base of primitive functions, at that point in time, your limbic brain is going to win to a large extent. So how much you're going to control, let's say for addiction, when do people stop smoking? Like some people can stop, some people cannot. And when do you stop it? The only reason why you want to stop something that's giving pleasure to you is when something kind of overrides it and say, hey, don't do it. What is that structure it's going to be? It's going to be the cortex.
Okay.
So how was it? So long it has not been doing that. Why would it say that now? Because there has to be change. See, basically, every choice is like weightage. People, I think the audience is going to be hearing a lot about in IT, so they are quite familiar with neural networking. So in that, each agent will have a specific weightage for a specific event.
Okay.
So when the weightage changes, the whole outcome will change. So when your cortex, that's the one that evaluates the choices, right? So when it starts giving a different weightage to an action, then you might want to stop it. So what are those kind of actions? For example, the consequence, sometimes if someone gets a heart attack and the doctor says, you're going to die, man, if you're going to have it. So that fear, that changes the weightage. or some responsible guys might, if they get a job,
Okay.
like, said, oh, I'm getting a job, this also giving me a dopamine high. If I want to sustain it, I will have to quit this. So that one. Some might have a kids, some might marry, someone's girlfriend might say, hey, if you stroke, I'm going to quit. So all these things are there. So the weightage. So what is happening is there are external factors. You need external factors to stop a habit. Without
Okay.
that, you cannot do it.
You cannot
You-
tell
you
yourself
cannot-
that I have to do this.
It never happens.
Okay.
It's like, see, there is so many, quit now. It never works. The brain, one problem is, why should I? And you don't have an answer for it. Unless you have an answer for the why should I, you're never actually going to quit. It's all only wishful thinking.
Okay.
So you need to have external factors, and you have to align the external factors accordingly. So how would you do it? You either make incremental goals, or you should change your circumstance. And as I say, remove the other important thing is take out what if you're going to have a cigarette in front of you, it's difficult to resist the temptation. Throw it out. Right? If you're going to have a bunch of chocolates in front of you, a Belgian chocolates, which I love, if you have it,
Set your environment.
Exactly. Set your environment. This again is the Ulysses contract. Ulysses contract is something you make with your future self. Right? In the mythology that in the Ulysses, when the sirens, he knows he might be tempted, so he will tell his sailors, "You tie me. If I'm being tempted, just catch me and tie me, so that I don't fall for it." So this is exactly what we do here also. You remove all those things that might tempt you. That's what I'm saying. You prepare yourself. You said, right? Before in a previous dialogue, you said, I prepare myself for an eventuality. That's exactly it. Remove the circumstances. Align whatever's going to help you achieve that. Stopping of the addiction or whatever. So unless you have a valid reason to convince yourself that this weightage, to give more weightage to a certain course of action, you will never stop an addiction. All this wishful thinking of, I can quit. No, you cannot. You need to have a solid reason to back it up.
Yeah.
Get a reason.
Okay, that's why.
Yeah.
Know your whys.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You should
So-
definitely know that.
I am all smiling when you are saying this particular thing, because a lot of my beliefs and study that I do and experiments that I make myself with about the habits in general, it's almost like you told me the scientific way of why it's happening, what is responsible and everything. But I'm going to ask like questions in the layman's terms to give very specific examples. Right. So the first one is, so this is the thing. If I want to do something, it could be habit, it could be achieve a goal, or it could be the hard work that I know I should put into. Me knowing how hard it's going to get, me knowing where I might fall off the wagon, or where I might give it up, or where I might feel uncomfortable, and also knowing what is going to happen if I actually put in that work that I would love to have. These three aspects is going to help you to stick to the plan.
Yes, in a way, basically you have to visualize your long-term goals. You have to know where you're leading to. This is why I said why I should do something. So that's the why. You have to have a solid reason. You have to have a goal. And once you have that goal, you cannot, like I say, I would like to run a marathon, right? But I don't. I cannot run even 2 kilometers. So where is the marathon here? But you have to have a reason why you want to do it. For example, you have to have a community of friends or this thing who you want to be with, who's also running. Enroll into that. Maybe you will have to do it. But it also has to. Then there are other goals. You want to. You have a seminar to present. You have some talk to give, right? And if you value that more, say I have to present I have to give a brilliant presentation there. I have to impress them. So if the weightage towards that is more, you're certainly not going to spend time practicing the marathon. So you also need to have the circumstances for that. So that's what I say, what you value most, or how you're going to chip in your time, like how you're going to partition your time. Yeah, there are people who can do both this seminar as well and run marathon as well, read books and everything. It is all about how you're going to divide the time. So in that time, what were you planning to do? Is it just going to see the Netflix? Not going to cut it. right? So how you're going to utilize that time? So it's all about weightage. What you want to do, whether you want to, yes, you want to run a marathon, but do you want your presentation to go better? So what is it that you want to give weightage? So you should have a clear goal. There is no point in trying to do everything. You have to have a clear goal. What is it that you want? Go accordingly. Yeah, it's good to be a dasavadani, like I can do 10 things. It will be good. But the thing is, most of us might not. So be practical. Make practical goals, incremental goals, and keep working towards it, and give yourself some kind of an appreciation or some kind of a cheat day if you achieve certain things. That will kind of egg on to you. There was a concept in US earlier. I'm just reminded of it. A long time I read back. You deposit money, and if you don't lose weight by some time in a certain period of time, you have to forego the money. But if you do achieve that weight, the weight loss, you can take back the money, right? So when this happens, people have an urge like to keep it. But what happened? They realized that most of them were, because the distance is actually at a distance, they forgot what to do about it initially. So in the last 1 week, even if they wanted to, they cannot lose the weight in 1 week. So then they changed as there was an incremental loss of money. Right? So that actually worked better. Okay. Like first day I will lose 3%. Every day 3% I will lose. And then the rate kind of increases. Then they were more falling in line accordingly. So this kind of incremental benefits, or rather even decremental punishments, you would call it, all this carrot and stick. Right, you got to talk to the various parts of the brain. You're probably it's like now it's like a parliament. Many of them are sitting. You have to make a deal with multiple areas. Hey, I know your legs gonna pain. You're going to suffer, but bear with it for the longer good. So you have to convince your legs to do it. Then you got to talk about you're going to pump really hard. It's going to be tough. So you work along. So the brain isn't. I'm having, you will have a lot of fatigue, but still you have to work with it. So various aspects of it, you need to have a dialogue. So the basic thing is give incremental benefits or rewards or punishments, and be quite practical. There's not like, I want to do everything. I don't think it has worked for anyone, including Elon Musk, right? Okay. Yeah. So
you were talking about accountability over here. When you said that when you're telling yourself that if I put in the money and if I do this, I get to take that. The reward system that you've set up helps you to be accountable for this.
It's not actually accountability. Okay. It is like it's your money. You're giving it to someone, but you're kind of... this again a Ulysses contract. You're making, okay, if I make a mistake, you have the right to punish me by taking my money. Okay. Right? So you're giving that power to someone, which is to someone else. You're relinquishing your power. And then you voluntarily, when you're sane, and you know that when you're, when you're hungry, absolutely hungry, you will not make that contract, because that cake in front of you or the ice cream in front of you is going to tempt you. When you're full, and okay, in a good frame of mind, that's the point you will make that contract. That's the point you will make that commitment, right? And so this is more like you anticipate your future falling off the line and try to preempt it by giving minor punishments. Okay. Right? And the otherwise go for reward. If you achieve this, you can have an ice cream, or you can treat yourself for something, and you got to be strict about it. That's all it is.
Let me just define this whole particular answer that you've mentioned in this. I want to say it in the layman's term, basically. So, a person who is more likely to say, if a person says, I need to go to the gym 4 times a week, or I need to be on a strict diet every single day, and this is my plan, is most likely to fail than a person who is telling, if I follow the diet for 6 days in a week, 7th day I will have a cheat day.
Exactly. Okay. Exactly. More like it. And this is only for the initial part where you want to set it up.
Till you build that habit.
What happens is, after some time, when you see your body improve, when you see your fitness level, when you see the advantages of being fit, like you don't snore, you're not sleepy, you're always fresh,
And
you're energetic, and all this. These kind of positive feedbacks, plus the very fact that your exercises themselves starts giving you a high, at that point it becomes a habit.
You don't even
You
have
don't need to you don't need to be mindful that I have to do this, I have to do that. You will do it anyway.
Yeah.
So but till then, to activate your prefrontal cortex, you need to coax your limbic system into coming along this. Okay, I will give you this if you do this kind of thing. So that's exactly what the initial phase is. But once you're deep into it, yeah, it will go automatically. Having said that, the other thing is, just like the chips example that I said, if you're really not paying at some point, you totally forget about it. You're not paying attention to it. You will again relapse into it. It's very easy to develop a bad habit, right? No.
Yeah.
Because it's quite comfortable. So that's how I would say. Yeah, so initial part, engage it, be mindful, give yourself small rewards and everything. But beyond a point, those exercises and the effects of the exercise, they themselves turn out to be the rewards that you seek. They themselves give you the dopamine hit, and then at that point in time, you're good to go.
Okay. Yeah. And there's one more thing I always talk about is in the initial time of this particular episode when we've started, you've mentioned that the brain did evolve, right? But end of the day, I feel the other day I was watching this Netflix series, The Life on Our Planet, and the Stone Age, Ice Age, at that point of time, it was all about survival for us, right? It's more like we don't know what to expect when, so got to be attentive all the time. So survival mode. And there's something that I analyze. I'm not saying that I am 100% correct, so because I don't know myself. So there are two things that I see us going through day in and day out. One is survival, another thing is comfort. And our brain either looks for that survival or comfort. So now when the survival, so things like people generally say, I get up when there is work, I don't have a problem. So if there is any event or anything that I know I have to attend, I will get up at 5 a.m. You tell me to get up at 4, I don't mind getting up and I would not crib about it. Survival. And there's another comfort. So the days that I don't have any event or the days that I don't have to generally do it, I look for the comfort. My brain tells me to push me to, just go back to sleep. There's nothing much to do.
So how did this concept of comfort even evolve? What exactly is comfort? Why is sugar so comfortable? Why is sleep so comfortable? Again, it's only evolution. There was a time you don't know when you're going to sleep, whether you're going to get your next meal. So when you see a sugar-laden food, that gives you the maximum bang for the buck. You eat a small amount of sugar and you're good to go for quite some time, for your brain to work and everything. So even what we construe as comfort actually came from survival instincts which were encrypted, like, say, some million years ago.
So are you saying that we still didn't evolve in that particular part?
Definitely, because that's the limbic part of it. Yeah. We are not completely evolved. See, the genetic makeup of humans and ape, they differ just by about 3 to 4%. So we haven't actually evolved. And it's the same mitochondria. The genetic makeup is for a single cell or algae and this thing. They are not way different, right? So we haven't actually totally evolved. We cannot be totally removed from our environment. We came from the seas, from algae. And we do carry that legacy within us. So it's always there. So that kind of survival. So even this comfort or the so-called comfort is basically, they were essential for survival earlier. We still carry that legacy. But then we have changed our, the way we live. And then that turns out to be lazy. That's all it is. So it's not about comfort or anything like that. Comfort is also part of survival,
Okay, yeah.
So that's how I see it. But now you have to define what it is and so on.
And then there was one of the particular time that you've mentioned, there are too many things, too many parts of our brain making a decision. So can we heighten or make one of the part as a leader by exercises, brain exercises or whatsoever, that will actually help us to stick to our goals and achieve them?
Okay, I will talk about two aspects now. See, initially I was talking about the emotional and the other brain, right? So the limbic circuit actually completes the formation by the teen years. By around 16, 17, it's done. But your prefrontal cortex connection, they develop only by the age of 20, 25 or 30.
Okay.
Depends on the person. So this is the reason why for a 17-year-old guy, his emotional circuit is full, but his logical brain is like, it's just half ape, right? So this is why they are also, because the prefrontal is not activated, that's also one of the reasons why they are more vulnerable for addictions. Because you don't have the logical brain to say, stop it. It's not yet developed, right? So what happens is, that's why they are more emotional. They're given. And when this matures, that's what we call as wisdom or maturity. Right? So that's what happens here. And when you say practicing the brain, what, when we approach any single act, you can do it multiple ways, right? So the difference between the normal brain and a neural network that the artificial they're developing is that the brain keeps developing redundancies. Even if it knows to do one way, it will try to improvise it. No, I will do it better. I will do it better. It's not that I will do it better. I will try to do better. It might do it worse. It might do it better. Okay. It will select the one that does better and then climb that and then go to the next. So this kind of constant evolution is there. So when you say someone is or if you're comfortable with Tamil, there is a thing called Vallavanukku Pullum Ayudam. There is, for a capable person, even grass could be a weapon. So what that means is, a person who's capable has the capacity to deal with various changes in circumstance and then utilize whatever he has availability. What that again means is, he has built in a lot of redundancy systems. If this module is not working, then I can take this path. So he's capable of various aspects to it. So this is what I call it as building the redundancies. So when we do practice, when we are, when we read, when we practice, when we do a crossword, when we do lateral thinking exercises, or when we practice badminton, the various nuances and the trick shots, everything in it. It is basically, we are trying to build various redundancy into that module. So this builds you a kind of a cognitive reserve. Like they say that, I don't know whether there is a hardcore evidence to say that, but there was a lot of suggestion that doing crosswords actually reduces your the intensity of an Alzheimer's if and when it sets in.
Okay.
It's not that the brain shrinking is going to come down. No, that's a biological process. It's going to stay the same way, but its effect is mitigated by the extra multiple layers of redundancies built by years and years of practice, training, and lateral thinking. So what I would say is, like, that's what they say, practice maketh a man perfect. Not exactly maketh perfect. It readies him for everything. That's all. So that provides a cognitive reserve. So even if some part of it is missed, you won't actually miss it. You can get by functionally with others. Yes, there will be a small minor dip in it, but you can still get on with your life even without letting it affect you. So that's why I call it as building redundancies. So how do you build redundancies? By exposing yourself to various, don't be in the comfort zone. Be exposed to multisensory inputs. Be ready for everything. Do a lot of stuff. Read, analyze, think, and all these things. So that's what comes up. If you're mindful of everything that you're doing, you're giving the sensory inputs from everywhere. If you're doing things more on an automatic mode, you're not allowing that to happen at all. So that's where this whole concept of being mindful, it is almost like becoming a catchphrase, but no one really understands what exactly is being mindful. It is just being aware of whatever you're doing, or try to be aware. Like, you cannot be aware of everything at the same time, as I said, but at least you have to be mindful that I should be aware, and you will definitely one notch you will be better. That in itself might help you build more redundancies, make you more robust, make you more ready for everything kind of a thing. So that's what I would call it as building capacity. Right? So there is not one. If, for example, me as a surgeon, I would say there are certain things, even when I'm operating at the high zoom like 25x, when I'm operating also, my when my hand moves, I wouldn't even know why it does a certain times. But it's just over years and years of practice and doing the same thing again and again and being mindful of each and every time that your capacity building is much faster and you attain a level of expertise which might seem very difficult to a newcomer. See, if my past self sees what I'm doing now, I would say, how the hell he has a magic hand? No, it is not just magic hand. It's just years and years of practice, which my past self is definitely going to achieve at some point in time. But that's not something, that's a given. You have to be mindful of what you're doing. So that's how you kind of build it.
Okay. So I basically want you to back me up over here, if I am right, of course. So I'm going to ask you many short questions.
Right.
And I want you to tell me yes, no. If it's
Got
no,
it.
yes, please help me to explain it
Okay.
better. So number one, when you know exactly what you want to do for your betterment, be it in career, be it in life, or be it in health or whatsoever, that you have a goal and you know exactly what you need to do, the first and foremost thing that you need to work on is setting your mindset.
Yes.
And when you're setting for your mindset,
But before that, you have to be real. You have to be clear. Is that what you want is slightly complicated in that you might think this is what you want, but when you're not ready to give up something, it means you don't want it that much.
but
It's
why do I want to give up something to achieve
When-
something?
you always need to, whether it's your time, whether it's about what you're willing to sacrifice. That determines what you really, whether you want to really. You cannot have everything. You cannot have the cake and eat it too.
Okay.
There is a specific amount of time, energy, your mental capacity, and everything. Each might have a different RAM, but at the same time, even within that, everyone they have. See, for example, why do you call it spending time? You're spending the time, right? So that is something you're giving up. You can as well do something pleasurable that time. When you're reading, you're spending time. So that time, how much time you have, what you're willing to give up. Are you willing to give your family time? Are you willing to give the comfort of travel? Are you willing to give the comfort of watching movies with the friends? Are you willing to sit and do the hard work, slog it out? Are you willing to do it?
Okay.
Is that important enough to set your priorities right? But if something is really important, you will automatically do all these things. So that's why you have to identify the right goal that motivates you.
I didn't even think about this because when I said, why do I have to give up something to achieve something? Now that you've explained, yes, we are always giving up something if we want to take up something. Like if I want to get physically fit, I have to give up on my comfort.
Exactly.
Or I have to stop Netflixing and chill and I have to get into sleep
Yes,
on
yes.
time to get up on time. If I want to start focusing on my career, and if I want to improve upon my career, I would have to give up on the me time or, some kind of things that are wasting my time or focusing my time on wrong things rather than focus on something. Yeah. So what you basically said is before even you get to the mindset, when you have a goal to achieve, when you want to achieve something, first you need to be prepared of what you're going to lose and then
Exactly.
get ready to lose it.
Are you ready to do it? And so for that is you should get something that truly motivates you, both at an emotional level as well as at a practical level. Whether it could be you want power, fine, that motivates you, good for you, go for it. But how are you going to achieve that kind of power? Work towards it. So for that kind of a guy, for him getting the first rank might not really enthuse him as much, right? So set your goals that motivate you. So like this, you have to know what you're good at it, and then you have to set practical goals which are achievable. What is practical depends on your capacity and what you believe, and like what is your capacity, how much redundancies you have already built in, and of course what you're willing to give up. And also align yourself with with people who are kind of could motivate you, or you might
Your
do
environment,
it exactly.
basically.
You will want to do it for your wife, for your family. You want them to be at a certain stature. You want your kids to be at certain stature. When you walk somewhere, you want people to get up. And all these things, these are the power equations. Or people might want to love you. They will just want to wave your hand like this. All these things you might want it. There's absolutely nothing wrong for it, as long as you know what you're ready to give up.
Yeah. So when you were talking about the motivation level, so like if it's if you know what you want to achieve by the end of it, that should motivate you.
Yes.
But I always say there's two things, right? So this is something that you've explained about internal motivation. The external motivation is a trap. I do feel that. I mean, it's good to start, like the ignition that you give, but to be specific, let me be specific. So I always say this. So when there is a, motivational video like Goalcast, now, right now, they are not that active, I guess, but once upon a time, a decade back or 5 years back, there used to be this motivational videos. If you want to do this, you have to get up, and, those kind of videos that ramp you up. It's good to start the ignition, to just start it in your life, but it's not going to last.
Okay, I'm going to flip the whole thing.
Okay.
I'm going to append it.
Please do. Yeah.
Internal motivations they are very flimsy, because internal motivations arise from your drive, which is the limbic, and it is unpredictable. Your limbic system is quite unpredictable. When you're hungry, you might think differently. When you're full, you think differently.
When you're emotional, you'll think differently.
External factors, on the other hand, they are unmoved by your internal milieu.
Okay.
Right? Why do you think people exercise when they're going to get married or when they get a girlfriend?
External
Simple.
motivation.
That's an external motivation.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So they are more, I'm sorry, they're much more predictable than your internal milieu. Because for your external factor to change, multiple things needs to change. If it's internal, you're just mindset, either I'm hungry, I'm sleepy, very few things, and then you get it. But yeah, I think you need to get your external factors aligned with what you want to do and how you can go about it. There's one thing to say, I want this, but then the logical brain should chip in how I'm going to reach there. You have to set goals, you have to set a path. There has to be very logical way of reaching that point. For that, there are multiple steps. And you have to organize those steps, and each point should have a different motivation factor, and each should have motivation factor as well as the clear idea of what I'm going to give up. Am I ready to give this up? So that's how I say it. So I would rather rely more on the external factors than internal factors, because they are very, very flimsy and unpredictable till they become a habit. But once it becomes a habit, your internal factors will also play an equally important role, because that also gives you that high. So for you to start with, you need to have the external factors aligned with it. Otherwise, just by thinking, I will do it, no, you will not.
Will not do it.
It hardly ever happens.
Okay.
I haven't seen one.
So one last question. So if you have any sort of goal, looking at it like the final, like let's say 1 year, after 1 year, I want to get into the ship. After 1 year, or after 3 years, I want to get into this particular post that I've been always eyeing on, or anything as such. It feels like a mountain because there's a long way to go. So when you've mentioned, like, step by step, you should have something that keeps you motivated to keep going forward. Take that big goal, break into milestones, and for each milestone, you have to get your mindset prepared, know what's going to happen.
What you're going to give up. That's a very, very important thing. Many people will not be. It depends on how desperate you are for. If there are 5 people who are desperate for the same post, they will have each 5 will have different levels of desperation for it, which means each of them will be ready to give up more and more. The one who's desperate will want to can give up more, but at the same time, it also depends on one's capacity also, what he has already spent. A person who has a huge reserve might not have to give up a lot to reach there, but a person who's not that capable, if he's ready to give up a lot, whether in terms of the time, the compromises that he has to make, either by integrity or by the family time or the sheer hard work that he has to put, he might reach the same post even though he is less capable, because he was simply ready to give up more. So this is what I would think. So if you're eyeing a specific post, plus you have to look around you. So who else is buying? So who's going to is he ready to give up more? Or compare with my capacity here, am I ready to give up that much to reach that? How desperate I am. It's something that you have to introspect. You cannot say that I want to be this, but I'm not ready to give up any of these. So that doesn't really work. That's what I'm saying. You have to be practical. You should know what you really want, and whether you want it desperately enough, for certain things, for a certain trade-off. So what is the trade-off that you're willing to make? That has to be a question. So there's a famous saying that you should always ask, what is in it for me? And the second question is, what will I give up to get it? So these are the two questions probably that will guide us and going towards to give us a clarity as to what we want actually.
This has changed a lot of my thought process. Because a lot of times we don't realize what we are dealing with when it comes to our mind, or what are the factors that nobody gets this information generally, that it's not just one part of you that you're going to say I'm going to do it. It's like multiple
Everything
factors.
is you. Everything is you.
Yeah, but
the one that wants a cake is also you.
Yeah.
Okay, the one who doesn't want it also you.
So there's a clash
The one
always.
the one who's moderating the conversation is also you.
Yeah.
So it's quite it's multiple areas of the brain. They're just fighting it out. There are various interesting aspects of neuroscience. There is something called split brain syndrome. We take one area, the Phineas cage. There was one area of the brain is damaged. The personality changes. There are a lot of things. A lot of neural science has gone through a lot. And there was an infamous error wherein they just chopped off the brain like it was someone's. The Walter Freeman for epilepsy, for schizophrenia, they used to do like a nice big leucotomy, 17 seconds brain surgery and so on and so forth. So yeah, those are horrendous periods of neurosurgery, but at the same time it also gives a lot of anatomical knowledge as to how the brain actually works. So yeah, neurosciences is the hardware part of it, but probably we do need to understand how the mind works. And just to touch upon all these mindfulness techniques, like all this yoga and meditation, what they basically do is, it basically, say for example, if it's a transcendental meditation or like anything, it focuses on your breathing. When you're meditating, you're trying to get yourself aware of every part of the body. Basically, you're trying to employ your cortex even when you're sitting simply. That's exactly what is a meditation. If you employ that part of the brain, then things are, it means you're forming new connections there, which hopefully they build more redundancies.
Okay. So to just summarize, I'm all about goals. If you have any goal that you're desperate enough, just don't take that step blindly. Prepare yourself into what you're going to lose. Prepare yourself on how hard it's going to be. Prepare yourself to set your mindset right way, and prepare yourself what are the challenges that you're going to face, and prepare yourself generally to have certain milestones to break it down, because we cannot keep running without motivation. But where are you going to get the motivation from? So there's a lot of whys that we have to cover so that we can achieve that goal in a planned way. Yes, things will go unplanned. I mean, like there's so many things that can happen, but end of the day, your preparation is going to help you to take you to that point where you always wanted to. And today's episode, and this is the first time that I'm saying that I have so much of knowledge that I need to change my mindset. Because there's only so many things that I have basically thought, and with the research, with the studies that I have time and time again focused on learning, one of the greatest thing is like I never realized that I have to lose something in order to gain something. I've never thought it that way at all. And another thing that I've learned about is, if I'm always thinking about, is my brain looking for survival or is my brain looking for comfort? So it's not two different things. It's like one same thing end of the day, because we are not trying to survive from a tiger or anything else right now, or hunger, but comfort is still as a survival for us. So that's another great learning. So, and I'm going to keep pondering upon this thought for the rest of the day for sure. But thank you so much, Dr. Arvind, for coming here and sharing your insights and patiently answering all the questions and explaining me.
Thanks a lot. It was a great pleasure. This was a kind of introspection even for me. So I was able to kind of think about all those things which I've been reading for so many years. So yeah, it was kind of mutually beneficial. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you.